Have you ever been kicked out of a place that you actually own? Aisha Carter walked into the hotel lobby in quiet confidence. No designer bag, no entourage, just a plain black t-shirt and a calm presence. And within 9 minutes, the very people who judged her based on her looks would be out of a job in front of every single guest. "This place isn't for your kind," the manager said, loud enough for the whole lobby to hear. What he didn't know was that she was the CEO. And what happened next would change everything. Before we dive in, tell us where you're watching from. Drop your city in the comments. If this moment already shocked you, hit that like button and subscribe, because what's about to unfold is more than a story. It's a reckoning. The glass doors of the Horizon Grand Hotel slid open with a hiss. Downtown Seattle buzzed behind her, but inside the lobby, time seemed to slow. Polished marble floors reflected warm golden light from chandeliers above. Bellhops wheeled luggage, receptionists clicked through screens, the scent of citrus and money hung in the air. And then Aisha Carter stepped inside. She didn't look like power. No tailored suit, no glittering jewelry, no press entourage following her every move. Just a black woman in sneakers and a plain-fitted t-shirt, walking with the kind of quiet certainty that made people turn, but not for the reasons they thought. She walked slowly, not out of hesitation, but intention. Every step across the marble made no sound, but her presence was loud in ways the lobby wasn't ready for. Behind the front desk stood Gregory Vance, 48, sharp suit, sharper opinions, arms folded, eyes like a scanner trained to assess worth. Flanking him were Lauren Hayes, 30, buttoned up and brittle, and Kevin Patel, 27, trying too hard to be in charge. They didn't smile. They didn't say, "Welcome." They just looked at her. Up, down, like a problem they didn't want to solve. "I have a reservation," Aisha said, voice calm. "Penthouse suite. The name's Carter." Gregory squinted like the words confused him. "That's a very high-tier room. Are you sure you booked the right hotel?" Aisha didn't blink. She reached into her bag and slid her ID and black metal credit card across the counter. Gregory picked it up with 2 fingers, like it might leave a mark on his skin. "Strange," he muttered. "This looks suspicious." Lauren pressed a button under the desk. Her voice echoed across the intercom. "Security, we may have a guest attempting access to a premium suite under suspicious circumstances, possibly fraudulent." Still, Aisha didn't raise her voice. "I'm not here for trouble. I'm here for my room." Kevin scoffed. "People try this all the time. Fake names, high-limit cards, hoping we don't check." Across the room, Sophie Lynn, a travel blogger from San Francisco, was already raising her phone. "I'm filming this," she whispered to her friend, Jacob Reed. Then louder, "People need to see this." Jacob hit "Go live." "We're at the Horizon Grand in Seattle," he said into the stream, "and we're watching something ugly happen." What they didn't know, what no one behind the desk knew, was that Aisha Carter wasn't just a guest. She was the owner, and she had just signaled her assistant 3 blocks away. "It's happening." Back in her office, Nia Thompson, Aisha's executive assistant, didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. The signal was simple, just 2 words. "It's happening." She immediately tapped a preset command. 3 screens came to life in front of her, each displaying security feeds from the Horizon Grand's internal system. In less than 3 seconds, Aisha Carter's ID, reservation, and ownership credentials were confirmed across the executive chain of command. But she hadn't come to wield them. Not yet. Back at the hotel, Gregory was holding her card in the air now, flipping it over like it might confess a lie. "You know," he said louder, making sure the lobby could hear, "we've seen this scam before. People walk in, flash a fancy card, claim a booking, and vanish when we call the bank. Not today." He turned to Kevin, handed him the card. "Lock it up." Kevin grinned as if he'd just been promoted. He walked to the back counter, opened a brushed steel safe, and with a theatrical motion, dropped Aisha's card inside. The click of the safe echoed like a slap. "You're done here," Kevin smirked. Sophie gasped. "They just stole her card." Jacob zoomed in on the safe. "This is theft. This isn't policy." But Gregory wasn't listening. His eyes were fixed on Aisha like she was a virus to be removed. "I've dealt with your kind before," he muttered. Aisha didn't flinch. "You're going to regret this," she said, voice low, almost disarmingly soft. Gregory scoffed. "You threatening me now?" She didn't reply. But in her mind, a moment flashed from 5 years earlier. She had landed in Atlanta on a red-eye, exhausted, dressed in sweats. She'd booked a boutique hotel to get a few hours of rest before a business meeting. The man at the desk looked her up and down and told her the system was down, to come back later when the manager arrived. She had slept in her car that night, ashamed, angry and cold. By morning, she had already started sketching a new plan, one that would grow into Horizon Hospitality Group, now one of the largest luxury hotel chains in the country. And the man who'd turned her away, she never saw him again, but she never forgot. Now, standing in a marble lobby that bore her company's brand, she watched history repeat itself, and knew this time the ending would be different. Gregory leaned forward, his tone hard. "Your reservation's cancelled. We don't tolerate deception. You're holding up real guests." Aisha looked to the side, gesturing softly. "You mean the guests watching this live?" she said. Sophie and Jacob were still recording. Around them, whispers spread, eyes turned, phones raised. Some were filming, some were frozen, some were clearly uncomfortable. Elena Ruiz, a young concierge who had been silent until now, finally stepped out from behind her station. She took a tentative step forward until Gregory cut her off with a barked command. "She doesn't belong here." That's when Aisha lifted her phone again. This time, her voice wasn't a whisper. "Nia," she said, "log this moment, timestamp it, every word, every action, from this second forward." Nia's voice echoed back in her earpiece. "Logged, system recording, full chain of custody initiated." Kevin turned toward the crowd, key still in hand. "This card is now company property," he said proudly. "Until the bank verifies it, she's not getting it back." The safe door clicked again, sealing his fate. Aisha didn't move, but something in her silence began to bend the room. The real test had begun, and they had just failed it, on camera. Kevin Patel stood tall, one hand on his hip, the other resting triumphantly on the safe. The silver key glinted in the light as if he'd just won a prize. He didn't see the storm he had just unleashed. Gregory, emboldened by his team's silence and the absence of resistance, leaned in closer to Aisha. "You're wasting everyone's time," he said. "Walk out now, or we'll make that decision for you." His voice cracked just slightly at the end, but no one noticed, not yet. Aisha didn't blink, didn't move, but when Lauren Hayes stepped out from behind the counter and reached for her arm, the entire room changed. Gasps erupted. Sophie's phone caught the moment instantly. "She just grabbed her," she shouted. Jacob's livestream blew up in seconds. A wave of furious comments flooded in. "That's assault. She didn't even raise her voice. What hotel is this?" Lauren's grip was tight, but Elena Ruiz, no longer just a quiet bystander, stepped between them. "You can't put your hands on a guest," she said, her voice shaking, but loud enough to stop the room. Lauren's expression hardened. "Stay out of this if you want your job." But Elena didn't move. She stood shoulder to shoulder with Aisha now, something awakening in her chest that had been silent for too long. "I won't lie for you," she said firmly. "Her reservation is valid," Gregory snapped. "She's trying to scam us. People like her." He stopped, because he saw Aisha's eyes, and because the words that usually rolled so easily off his tongue, racism dressed in policy, suddenly tasted like gasoline. "Finish that sentence," Aisha said, still calm. "Go on." But he couldn't. Around them, the lobby had gone still but not quiet. The tension had texture now, like the air before a lightning strike. Then Aisha lifted her phone again. "Nia," she said, voice even, "escalate the system. I want internal documentation started now. Every word logged, every camera feed synced. Make sure legal gets the live file." From the speaker in her ear, "Understood. Timestamps locked. Legal team looped in. Do you want Carla on standby?" "Give me one more minute," Aisha said. That's when Kevin, still playing the role of enforcer, leaned forward with his usual smugness. You think a card gets you in here? He laughed. Go back to wherever you came from. There it was, the mask fully dropped. The lobby didn't flinch this time. It bristled. More guests pulled out phones, more murmurs, louder now, and Eleanor, she wasn't quiet anymore. I've worked here 3 years, she said to the room, and I've seen this happen before. Every time a guest like her walks in, alone, confident, not dressed like a billionaire, you treat them like criminals. Gregory barked. Enough. I want her out now. Both of them, if necessary. Lauren jumped in. She refused to provide valid ID. This is a security breach. I'm reporting this. But no one believed them anymore. Jacob turned to the camera, angling it toward himself. Just to be clear, he said, we're watching a guest be harassed by hotel staff after providing her name, ID, and card. Now they've locked up her property, grabbed her arm, and are trying to remove her. Then he added, this isn't just bad service. This is discrimination. That was when Aisha turned to Kevin, her voice calm but with a heat that burned through the marble and glass. Return my card. Now. Kevin smirked. Or what? She stared at him, unwavering. Or you'll be locked out of the Horizon system for life. No employment, no references, no appeal. Lauren snorted. You don't speak for Horizon. But then Elena stepped forward again, her voice clear and unwavering now. She does. The ground began to shift. Gregory snarled. You don't even know who she is. From the side, Sophie whispered, but the camera picked it up. Oh, she does. We all do now. For the first time since she entered the Horizon Grand, Aisha Carter took a step forward. Not toward the door, toward the front desk, toward the people who had just humiliated her in front of dozens of guests and live-streaming cameras. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't threaten. She simply said, You've just made the worst mistake of your professional lives. Gregory forced a crooked smile, but his eyes darted nervously toward the growing crowd. You think so? He asked, like he still held some authority. I know so, Aisha replied. Silence fell like a curtain. The sound of soft suitcase wheels and hushed whispers filled the marble expanse. Sophie's stream ticked past 1-800 live viewers. Jacob's chat exploded. She's the owner, isn't she? They messed up big time. Wait, she's the CEO? Kevin Patel, still clinging to his illusion of control, held up the safe key again. He spoke into the intercom with mock importance, his voice now echoing across the lobby speaker system. Attention all staff, unauthorized individual at the front desk. Do not engage, fraud alert active. The moment the message ended, a thick silence followed. Aisha stood still. So did everyone else. Then a single voice cut through the quiet. Sophie Lynn, from the corner. She's not a fraud. We're recording everything. And just like that, something shifted. Not just in the staff, not just in the guests, in the room itself. The lobby was no longer a stage for hospitality. It had become a courtroom of public judgment. Lauren, still trembling, tried to reassert dominance. She reached for Aisha again. Let's go, she hissed. You're embarrassing yourself. That was when Elena Ruiz fully stepped in. Physically, she planted herself between Aisha and Lauren, the youngest, lowest-ranking staff member in the room, now standing taller than all of them. Don't touch her again, she said clearly. Lauren froze. You'll be fired, she snapped. Eleanor didn't flinch. Then fire me, she said. But you're not laying another hand on her. That sentence echoed, not because it was loud, because it was true. Gregory surged forward, frustration boiling over. Do you even know who she is? He shouted. She's a fraud. Look at her. People who stay in penthouses don't look like... He caught himself too late. Aisha's voice came steady and sharp. You keep saying that word, fraud, like it's going to erase what you've done here. She took another step forward. Gregory stumbled slightly backward. At 29, Aisha had flown to a leadership conference in LA. She wore a tailored navy suit, presented at the event, received a standing ovation. Then, at her hotel, the clerk behind the desk looked at her ID and said, We'll need a second form. Then a third. Then he made her wait 2 hours while verifying it all. Meanwhile, 3 white men in polo shirts walked in, gave only their last names, and were handed keys without question. That night, she wrote the very zero-tolerance anti-profiling policy that now governed every Horizon property, including this one. And now, as Gregory tried to rally the last of his ego, Aisha lifted her phone to her ear again. "Nia," she said, "escalate. Begin internal audit. All staff actions logged, every word recorded." "Confirmed," Nia replied. "Do you want Carla?" she asked. "Not yet," Aisha answered, "but have her ready." Kevin, who had stayed quiet for too long, finally leaned forward. "Look, we were just doing our jobs." "No!" Aisha cut him off. "You were doing what someone taught you was acceptable." Jacob turned to his stream again. "She's not yelling," he said. "She's not crying, she's just standing here and they're unraveling." The lobby had stopped operating like a hotel. Now it was a stage, and Aisha Carter had taken control without ever raising her voice. And still, Gregory didn't know who she was. But that was about to change. Gregory Vance stood behind the front desk, fists clenched, jaw tight, pride collapsing inch by inch. He could feel it. The crowd wasn't with him anymore. He turned to Kevin. "Call security again. Get someone in here now." But Kevin didn't move. He had heard Aisha's voice, felt the shift in the room, and now, for the first time, he was unsure. Lauren, pale and stiff, backed up until her heels hit the wall. Her eyes darted between guests, the camera lenses, and Aisha's expressionless face. Sophie zoomed in on the counter. "They're panicking," she said into the stream. "They don't know who she is, but we're about to find out." Aisha turned to Elena and spoke calmly. "Do you see my name in the reservation system?" Elena, standing proud now, nodded. "Yes, A. Carter, penthouse suite, checked in remotely." "And the tag?" Aisha asked. "Is it flagged VIP?" Elena checked again, then confirmed. "Executive level override. Owner level clearance." That was it. The words didn't come with thunder, but they landed like an earthquake. Someone gasped near the espresso bar. A man with a briefcase muttered, "She's not just a guest." And then Gregory, desperate, blurted, "Anyone could fake that. A hacker. She could have breached the system." Sophie's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "You really think someone walked in off the street, hacked your system, and brought 2,000 witnesses with them?" Kevin finally broke. He looked at the safe, then back at Aisha. "Greg, what if we're wrong?" Aisha's gaze turned to him, unwavering. "You weren't wrong. You were told to take something that wasn't yours. That's called theft. And you made a choice." Kevin's mouth opened, then closed again. And that's when the crowd moved. A woman in a floral scarf stepped forward, standing between Aisha and Lauren. "You're not laying a hand on her again," she said. Then a man in a business suit joined her. Then a young couple. Then 2 more guests. And then 3. And soon, a half-circle had formed around Aisha, like the lobby itself was drawing a line in the marble floor. Gregory shrank behind the counter. The voices weren't whispers now. They were statements. "This is disgusting. She's handling this with more grace than any of you deserve. This is going viral. Everyone's going to see it." Aisha looked around slowly, then spoke, barely above a whisper. "This is what happens when silence stops being an option." Jacob turned his phone to the crowd. "They're protecting her now," he said. "Not because they know her title, because they recognize what's right." And then, the moment that cracked the whole room, Kevin, still holding the intercom mic, whispered into it, unaware it was still on speaker. "She owns the place, doesn't she?" It echoed. It echoed like truth. A weight fell over the entire lobby. Sophie turned her camera slowly to Aisha. "Do you?" she asked, breathless. Before Aisha could answer, Elena stepped forward, voice calm, loud, and undeniable. "She does." The room erupted, not with noise, but with a collective realization, with widened eyes, with murmurs turning into outrage. They kicked the CEO out of her own hotel. Oh my God, this just flipped everything. Lauren's face collapsed. She turned to Gregory, voice shaking. You said she was lying. Gregory didn't answer. He couldn't. And in that silence, Aisha stepped forward, past Elena, past the half-circle of strangers who now stood as witnesses, as allies. She walked up to the very desk where she had been humiliated and looked Gregory Vance straight in the eyes. Aisha stood still, face to face with Gregory. For a moment, the whole lobby felt like it had stopped breathing. "You wanted me out," she said, voice low, unwavering. "You framed me. You called me a thief. You tried to humiliate me in my own lobby." Gregory opened his mouth to respond, but nothing came out. Her phone buzzed gently in her hand. Nia's voice came through, sharp and steady. "Aisha, Carla is ready. Do you want me to patch her through?" Aisha didn't look away from Gregory. "Yes, right now." She tapped the screen. A new voice filled the lobby. Carla Bennett, Chief Compliance Officer for Horizon Hospitality Group. She didn't scream. She didn't ask questions. She just said, "Aisha, everything is prepared. We're standing by for your authorization." Aisha took a breath. Her tone didn't rise, didn't crack. "Terminate Gregory Vance. Terminate Lauren Hayes. Terminate Kevin Patel. Immediate removal from the Horizon system. Freeze their access credentials. And log today's incident for legal audit." A beat of silence. Then 3 electronic beeps. Gregory looked down at his badge just in time to see it flash red. So did Kevin's. So did Lauren's. Their access gone. Not suspended. Not questioned. Revoked. In front of everyone, phones caught the moment from every angle. Sophie gasped. "Oh my God, it just happened." Jacob whispered, "They're locked out. Live. Right now." Lauren froze, her badge still in her hand. She stared at it like it had betrayed her. Kevin turned pale. "No, wait," he stammered. "What is this? You can't do this." Aisha didn't even look at him. "You no longer speak for this company." Elena stepped forward again, her voice strong, rising above the murmurs. "They've been removed. They do not represent Horizon anymore." Gregory's composure snapped. "This is illegal. You can't just... This isn't how hotels operate." He turned to Lauren. "Call corporate. Get someone, get anyone on the line." Lauren's hands trembled as she pulled out her phone. She tapped, then froze. "I'm locked out," she whispered. Panic bloomed in her eyes. "Everything's gone." Kevin took a step toward the safe. "Maybe I can get the card. Maybe we can fix." "Stop right there," Elena said firmly. "You're no longer authorized to handle guest property. Step away from the counter." Kevin froze in place. And then, like a final lash of desperation, Gregory exploded. "You think this circus makes you a leader?" He spat at Aisha. "You tricked your way in. You humiliated us in public. You'll be sued for this." Aisha tilted her head slightly. Calm, focused. "You think leadership is about image?" she replied. She gestured to the crowd, guests still watching, phones still recording. "Leadership is when people who've been ignored finally speak up, and they're heard." A woman in the crowd raised her voice. "You never answered my complaint last spring," she said, eyes locked on Gregory. "I emailed. You ignored me." Another chimed in. "I was charged twice and threatened with legal fees when I asked for help." A third voice from the back. "I requested an ADA-compliant room, was told none were available, then watched someone else check into one." Gregory looked around. Each voice, a stone hitting glass, cracks forming. Lauren backed up. "Greg, what is this?" she whispered. "They're turning on us." Gregory's voice had lost its edge. "They're just angry. This will blow over." But it didn't. It grew. Jacob, now with nearly 3,000 live viewers, panned his phone across the lobby. "This is what a reckoning looks like," he said. "They pushed too far, and now they've fallen apart in front of us." Then came the final blow. Sophie Lynn pulled up her Reddit post, now going viral. Hundreds of comments, screenshots of Kevin's intercom call. Lauren grabbing Aisha, Gregory's quote, "People like her don't belong here." "It's out there now," Sophie said aloud. "Everyone's seeing it." Gregory lunged toward the counter, furious. "Delete that. That's private property." 2 guests stepped into his path. One, a quiet man in glasses, simply said, "No, you don't get to silence this." Gregory Vance stood frozen behind the counter, eyes darting, face flushed, words trapped in his throat. Kevin Patel had shrunk behind the safe, badge in hand, breathing shallow, waiting for someone to undo the irreversible. Lauren Hayes stared blankly at her phone, still blinking in denial, as if her access might magically reappear if she tapped hard enough. But the hotel had already moved on. Not the marble or the furniture, the people, the guests, the staff, the witnesses. And at the center of it all stood Aisha Carter, calm and unmoved, holding the silence in the lobby like a conductor holding the final note before the crescendo. She looked around slowly, then took one simple step forward. She adjusted the hem of her black t-shirt, lifted her chin, and spoke, not to the staff, but to everyone. "My name is Aisha Carter." Pause. "I am the founder and CEO of Horizon Hospitality Group." Pause. "And as of this moment, I am reclaiming this hotel." The lobby breathed in. You could feel it. The air itself changed. Phones lowered, brows rose. One man clapped, another whispered, "She owns everything." Jacob's livestream exploded. "She's the CEO." Holy shit! This just flipped again. "This woman is next level." Gregory stumbled forward, his voice cracking with desperation. Wait. This isn't how we do things. There are procedures. There's protocol. You ambushed us." Aisha didn't even flinch. "No," she replied coolly. "I walked in like any other guest. Quiet, alone, respectful. The only thing I didn't bring was privilege." And then came the nail in the coffin. "You proved, without prompting, how your team treats someone who doesn't look the part." Lauren's voice finally broke through the tension. I didn't mean for it to go this far," she stammered. "I didn't know what to do." Aisha looked at her carefully. "You had a choice," she said. "You made it. When you pressed the intercom, when you laughed, when you watched your colleague lock away my card like I didn't matter." Lauren trembled. "It was Gregory," she blurted out. "He told us how to treat people who didn't match our top-tier guest profile. He said we were protecting the brand image. I thought it was normal." Gregory's face snapped toward her, furious. "That's a lie." But it wasn't, because Aisha raised one finger and said simply, "That's a confession." In her ear, Carla's voice returned, logged and time-stamped. "Legal is receiving it now." A woman near the concierge whispered to her husband, "She didn't just fire them, she exposed the system." "ED," Kevin tried to recover. "What happens to us now?" Aisha turned to him. Not unkind, but unbending. "You will receive formal notice of termination. Your names will be flagged across Horizon's hiring network. You are banned from future employment with any of our properties." She let that sit before finishing. "If we uncover evidence of prior misconduct, further action will follow." Gregory stared at her, eyes wide, breathing shallow. "All this because you wanted to prove a point?" Aisha stepped forward, calm as ever. "No," she said, "all this because I'm done letting people like you decide who deserves respect." Sophie raised her voice across the lobby. "They tried to erase her, and now she's rewriting the rules." Aisha turned slightly to Elena. "Reset the check-in system," she said. "Suspend all pending reservations flagged under Gregory's staff ID. We'll reach out to affected guests and offer them compensation." Elena nodded, her hands steady now, her shoulders square. "Yes, Mum." From the back of the room, a guest, older, white-haired, stepped forward. "I didn't speak up earlier," she said gently. "I was afraid. But I've seen enough today to know this was long overdue." Aisha nodded. "You're not alone." And then she turned to the room, her voice lifting, not loud, but firm. "If any of you experienced mistreatment at this property, today or ever, our internal team will be stationed here in the lobby. No more form letters, no more silence, just answers." The room buzzed, not in chaos, but in clarity. And when someone asked, "Are you staying here tonight?" Aisha smiled for the first time. "I never checked out." 3 months later, the Horizon Grand Hotel didn't look different on the outside. The marble still shined, the chandeliers still glittered, the concierge bell still chimed with its same familiar note, but everything had changed. Guests who entered now did so without fear of being second-guessed. No one's clothing, skin color, or accent triggered a security alert. No more cold stares behind polished counters. No more silent profiling masked as policy. Behind the check-in desk stood Elena Ruiz, now general manager, not promoted out of sympathy, but out of clarity. She had spoken the truth when it counted. She had stepped between cowardice and courage, and now she led the very place where her voice once trembled. Behind her, hung in a quiet frame near the main entrance, was a photograph, Aisha Carter, standing in that very lobby, wearing her black t-shirt, not for fashion, but as a symbol. Beneath it, a plaque read, "This space belongs to every guest. No exceptions." The plaque was not a monument, it was a contract, and across the entire Horizon Hospitality Group, things moved fast. 57 properties across the US underwent complete audits. Ignored complaints resurfaced. Dismissed employees came forward. Dozens of internal promotions were issued to frontline staff who had long been overlooked. Every location now implemented a rotating equity compliance board, anonymous guest feedback terminals, zero-tolerance misconduct policies with real-time accountability, and above all, a new department was born. Horizon Forward, not a slogan, not a diversity shell, but a functioning internal reform engine with measurable goals and public reports. Aisha didn't disappear into her office. She toured every single Horizon hotel, often unannounced, always dressed in ordinary clothes. She wasn't checking appearances, she was checking assumptions. The media called it a corporate revolution, a masterclass in leadership. But for Aisha, it was something simpler, a promise she had made to her younger self, to the girl in Charlotte, to the woman who slept in her car in Atlanta, to every guest who had been made to feel like a problem instead of a person. And the guests never forgot it. Each of the witnesses from that day, Sophie Lynn, Jacob Reed, the guests who stood in that half-circle, received personal letters. Not from PR interns, not form emails, from Aisha herself. "You stood when others looked away," she wrote. "That matters." Sophie and Jacob were later invited to speak at Horizon's Internal Leadership Summit. Jacob stood on stage and said, "We didn't set out to expose anything, we just refused to put our phones down." But even as the company rebuilt, one final twist arrived. A message, private, quiet, from a former hotel manager in Portland. He'd worked under Gregory years before. He confessed what many had suspected. Gregory wasn't the only one. There was an unspoken directive from regional leadership. Certain guests were considered non-priority if they didn't match the profile. It was never written, but everyone knew. The name that came up, Michael Turner, the same regional director who retired quietly months before Gregory's incident, the same man Aisha had once filed complaints against early in her career only to be ignored. Nia forwarded the confession to Carla. Carla's reply came swiftly. "Internal task force initiated. All previously dismissed employees under Turner's tenure will be reviewed." And just like that, what began in one lobby sparked a network-wide reckoning. Former employees wrongfully dismissed were reinstated. Those with buried complaints had their cases reopened. Settlements were issued, but more than money, dignity was restored. And Aisha, her reputation shifted not as a business genius, but as a reformer, a leader who didn't just build hotels, she rebuilt trust. Her final statement at the Horizon Summit echoed across industries. Hospitality doesn't begin with the smile you give, it begins with the respect you assume. The room rose in applause, not because a CEO had spoken, but because a woman who had once been shown the door turned around and opened it for everyone else.